Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Bison Media Zone. We do it each and every Wednesday at 10:30 on WDAY Extra. The forum is Mike McFeely gracing us here today. I'm Dom Izzo. We'll get to some Summit League hoops chatter in just a little bit. Bison women play tonight in Vermillion. Of course, we've got the rivalry game with NDSU and UND coming up on Saturday. I wanted to spend some time, Michael, on a story our colleague Jeff Kolpak wrote yesterday on the future, it's big picture stuff of college athletics with the House settlement looming out there. Because I get questions about this all the time from fans wondering what in the world's going on. I'm not sure we know, but we're going to try our best to decipher it.
I hope you just say a bunch of words that sort of
Word
make
salad
sense.
on it. But the House settlement is looming out there with the NCAA. They expect it to be settled sometime in April. I think originally it was supposed to be settled last offseason, and then that got held up. But the parameters of it are earth-shattering basically for college football because it's going to change how many players are on a roster. The limit, we've heard the 105 number.
Yep.
Matt Larson, NDSU athletic director, told Kolpak yesterday that NDSU is 99% not going to opt in, which means that does not change the structure of how the Bison will do things financially next
However,
year.
I did see today that Montana State is going to
correct.
opt in. And so that's an interesting decision by one of the blue bloods of FCS football. And, you know, it's also complicated. It's like that TV commercial for insurance where the kid goes, "What's the economy?" And then the adults are, yes, very important.
Yes.
What isn't the economy? That's kind of where we are with this House settlement stuff. What isn't the House settlement?
Right.
None of us
exactly
understand
right.
what it is.
Nope.
But we're supposed to.
It's like a write-off. We have no idea what it is, right?
But the people who are writing it off
they
know
know
what it
going on,
is. Exactly. No, but it matters because it has to do with revenue sharing.
Yes.
And roster limits and athlete limits and where the money comes from, because now the Bison have a collective that is very active and successful in keeping athletes in Fargo for the time being, and who knows what the future holds, but they've done a great job there. But the opting in would allow you then to have revenue sharing through the athletic department, which is what all the big boys are going to do.
Correct.
Which means I don't know why it's college athletics anymore, because that is like completely professional athletics. But that's a whole separate debate and discussion. But NDSU, for our purposes, for now, is going to opt out of it, meaning that pretty much everything is going to stay the same, which, Matt Larson told Jeff, well, but we're going to see what other people do.
Right.
Well, we already know what one of their football rivals is going to do. And what does that mean for Montana State? So can Montana State then offer 85 scholarships? And if they do that, then what does that mean in terms of, are they FCS or FBS?
Right, correct.
Or are they going to go, it's all just tumultuous and crazy.
And that's the problem with it, with a lot of things with the NCAA. There aren't any set guidelines because they're letting the FCS and the schools that don't have football fit the bill for a shortfall of $1 billion that some schools just don't have the cash to do. But not everybody, and people would argue, Mike, well, not everybody's on the same playing field anyway. But we don't have the same guidelines, like you're saying. If Montana State has this many scholarships and North Dakota, South Dakota State, North Dakota State are here, then what are we doing?
Well, right, but we had heard for the last couple of years that some of the big boy schools were taking away scholarship players from the North Dakota States and others to then offer them to be walk-ons at, say, in Iowa or Nebraska, and then they were just paying them the equivalent of a scholarship through the collective.
Yeah, right.
And so it's there are no rules anymore, but this is a way then, the roster limit is a way to limit that, because you can only have 105 guys on your roster. And then we've talked about this. So those 20 guys that are at the end of FBS rosters, then they're going to be cut loose, apparently. And then some people in FCS are all excited about that.
Right, how good are those guys?
Right, the last 20 guys on the roster at Colorado State or even Iowa or Iowa State, how good are they?
Right.
So I just don't know. It's all, trying to keep up with this stuff it's insanity.
Well, and that's, we're looming out here as well. There's a new commissioner going to be named for the Missouri Valley Football Conference. That would be, to me, probably 1A. What is our league doing? Because right now it seems like it's going to be institution by institution decision where it might behest the league to say, we're having a set, this is what we're going to do.
Well, but how can you? So Montana State is going to go their own way in
Right.
the Big Sky, but Montana State, relatively speaking, has a pile of money.
And Idaho State doesn't.
As opposed to an Idaho
Yeah.
State or a
Yeah.
Northern Arizona
Yeah.
or an Eastern Washington,
Portland
which
State,
has
yeah,
no
correct,
money.
Yeah.
And so how do you?
Or Murray doesn't in the Missouri
Right. So how do
Valley,
you?
right?
God, I mean, Indiana State, Murray State, Illinois State
Yep.
doesn't have that much money. So how do you? How do you put a limit on the top teams?
Right.
Which is one thing that has triggered NDSU for 5 years or 6 years now. Is why are the bottom schools making the decisions
Correct.
for everybody in the Missouri Valley Football Conference? So Josh Fenton, did I say that? Is going to have a big job coming up as the next Missouri Valley Football Conference commissioner.
Yeah, that's one of the many that are out there. It's just it's hard to, even in a half-hour show here, try to encapsulate all of this because there's so many tentacles to it, and we still really don't know the answers. Like when people come up and say, either to you or myself, okay, well, what does this mean? Generally, I say, I have no idea.
I just say, what doesn't it mean? Oh, whew, crazy, isn't it? And I just walk away. Yep.
Because that's where we're at, because it's so much easier to explain what's happening on the field than what's happening off right now.
But everything off the
it's so
field
tumultuous
is just
right now.
I mean, it.
But it affects everything.
And not that I turn everything in my life around to this, but this is one more reason why I think it would be better if North Dakota State somehow got to FBS, even though it's all going to change within 5 or 6 years anyway.
Probably.
But if they could get to the Mountain West or whatever conference or the Pac-12 or whatever, I think it's a little more delineated at that level than it is in FCS. I just think FCS is in this weird
It's an accordion
place where you have just all these different. You have, schools that don't have full scholarships. You have non-scholarship, allegedly, quote unquote, non-scholarship schools. You have all these different levels at FCS. Just get to the FBS and be a G5 school and just play by the same rules as Washington State and Oregon State and Wyoming. It'd be way easier.
Yeah. The question also looming out there, and you mentioned it because we're not really in college athletics, is how far we are from the players unionizing and that becoming a whole deal. Because if you're telling me we're going to have revenue sharing, then things have to be collectively bargained. Then, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And so
would
it's
think.
So that and it's all. How long until the Power Four conferences break away?
Right. And
that's been talked about
right.
now for years. They got to figure out a way to let the small schools into the basketball tournament because they don't want that to go away because that is a cash cow for everybody involved. Most importantly, the TV networks, which run college sports, which is why we are where we are today,
That's exactly
is
right.
because of television. So
Yes.
thank you very much, Don Izzo.
do what I
We
can on
appreciate
that.
it,
That's
yeah.
always my fault on that. But it's something I wanted to, because you've covered this. I've tried to as well. Right. And that's all you do is just shake your head on, like, you think we have one thing understood, and then the next day it completely changes on that.
Yeah, and so it. Go to the games if you're a fan.
Enjoy the games.
Enjoy the games. They're still college kids. I
Yep.
mean, you and I know that because we deal with them on a regular basis. I mean, they're still 18, 19, 20-year-old kids at this level that 99% of them are good kids, men and women, at all the schools. You might not like certain schools,
Right.
but the kids there are no different than the kids at North Dakota State or any place else. And so cheer for the teams and leave the other stuff up to Matt Larson and Josh Fenton to figure out. Oops, did I say that again?
Oh, you did again.
To figure out where the schools are going to be going forward.
Last thing I know, there's another topic you love to talk about is mock draft season, but there is the real potential that North Dakota State, we talked about it when we went to Colorado, that they could play maybe the top two guys in the NFL draft. It very well may materialize when we get with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders could be 2-3, could be 1-2, could be 1-3 when we get to April, which is quite again, just to take that game away, and the further we get from it, just kind of shake your head like, boy, there was some guys playing that day.
There was, and that's, again, if North Dakota State, they say they can't get FBS games, and part of it is they don't want to take them at a discount. NDSU, they want to get paid, to go somewhere.
Doubt.
I don't blame them for that, but there are also schools that just will not call North Dakota. The Minnesota Gophers, as long as PJ Fleck is there, and I know this because I've had two different people tell me this who I trust and know, Fleck has said, I ain't playing North Dakota State, I ain't playing South Dakota State as long as I'm here, which is fine.
Yep.
That's his decision.
That's his prerogative.
But that Colorado game, to me, there was even more excitement for that, right or wrong, and anticipation for that, right or wrong, than there was for the national championship game.
Yep.
You know, so those you can talk all you want about. You know, the Bison would not have a national championship possibility if they moved to FBS, but they might be able to play the Colorados and the Oregons and the Kansases and Texas Techs.
Yep.
That they seem to not be able to get those games now.
When we come back, we'll actually talk about stuff happening on the court. We'll talk some Summit League basketball. Big weekend for the Bison men as they got UND. Bison women have a game tonight. We'll talk about that as we roll out of the Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, here on the Bison Media Zone. You look at the up-to-date standings in the Summit League on the men's basketball side, where St. Thomas and Omaha are tied for first. The Bison sit in third, just a half game ahead of the Jacks. Then Kansas City, USD, UND, ORU, and Denver. This might be the first time this has ever been said, Michael. A big one in Omaha tomorrow with St. Thomas and the Mavericks, each of them 5-0. They play tomorrow night, so we'll have some separation there at the top of the league standings.
Well, North Dakota State, after they lost those first 2 games of the league season in Fargo to St. Thomas and Omaha, they obviously need some help from other schools. And just it's a double round robin in the Summit League, like all conferences are. So there's going to be nobody's going to go undefeated this year in the conference. So they're going to have to win a couple of games on the road here. The NDSU will, to get back in the mix to possibly win the Summit League. And all of this it's all going to be interesting because St. Thomas, and I know you've reported on this, but they will be eligible next season for the NCAA. Yep. Funny how the wealthy Twin Cities schools get a break from the NCAA, but we won't get into that right now. I don't remember any of the public schools.
No, never. That never happened.
NDSU, UND, USD, SDSU. I don't remember those schools getting a break from the NCAA, but whatever. NDSU would like to finish first in the league in the regular season because then that's a tiebreaker this year because if St. Thomas wins the conference tournament, they're not eligible. So then it would be, I think the first tiebreaker is the team that wins the regular season title.
Correct.
And I don't know what happens if St. Thomas wins both. I don't know who would decide that.
It's not guaranteed. So if you make the conference championship game and you lose to St. Thomas, that's not automatic. Then it would be the next highest placed team.
Regular season,
right? Though. Regular season place.
So
team.
these
Correct.
games matter
because
there's St. Thomas could win the league.
Correct.
This year, just like they could have won it last year.
Yep.
And so it matters where you finish in the regular season.
And they've won games in Sioux Falls each of the last 2 years. So it's not a real possibility they go down there because there's no dynamite team this year. I think there's some team. The bottom. It's top heavy though on the men's side, in my opinion.
I think those 4 teams that you saw on that graphic, I think those 4 are for sure going to be in the mix in Sioux Falls. Kansas City maybe a wild card just because they just muck things up defensively and they beat you up, and that always works in the Summit League tournament, as it has for NDSU for a lot of years, playing defense and scoring just enough. I think after that, though, I don't know that any of the rest of those teams are going to.
Yeah, like last year we saw Denver, the 7 seed, make it all the way to the championship game. That I don't see that.
So I mean,
happening.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it happens again, but it doesn't look like those bottom teams.
I don't.
Just
maybe
don't play,
one game.
They
I
don't
don't know
play
about winning
defense.
2. Yeah,
I mean, there's just
correct.
no defense.
No.
We talked about this the other day. I mean, South Dakota. It's like I played better defense at the YMCA at noon ball, and I didn't play any defense. I was like this. I was like that.
Defense is a foreign concept.
Go ahead, Ray Downs. Go score 40 points at noon ball. I don't care. I'm going to score 41.
Bison men have gone and scored 100 points to that point 2 of the last 4 times out on the floor. They scored 100 at Oral Roberts, and they scored 103 against South Dakota.
And those are the 2 teams that don't play
among
the 2 teams that don't play any defense.
UND is also in that mix as well.
And Denver is also in that mix.
And UND plays South Dakota tomorrow night. What do we make of Dave's crew here now as they get ready to make the turn for home on the second half?
I think they kind of got things squared away. I think there was a little dip going into the conference season. Some things probably happening. It's a weird world out there when you have if we just
Players going
the
off.
players
and having,
going off,
right,
and
making
then
highlight
and
games.
then you go into the conference season on a 8-game or 9-game winning streak. You didn't lose in December, and you think you can just roll the basketball out there maybe and win a game, and it just doesn't work. They're just not that good. They're a good mid-major team. They're not that good where they can just roll the ball out and win every game. So I think they got things on the right track again, and this will be a good test on Saturday. UND is not a team that plays a lot of defense, but they can score. Trace Eaglestaff has been a little cold in the league so far. Speaking of having a huge game and then kind of cooling off after that, what he did against Alabama on national TV. But NDSU needs to win this game, and they need to just kind of put UND at 2-5 in the league. NDSU needs to be 5-2.
Have some separation.
Have some separation there, and then move on from there.
On the women's side, we were talking about the Bison women this weekend, and then they've laid an egg in the second half of that game at Kansas City, where they had a chance, Mike. They never started 5-0 in Summit League play. Had they won that game, they would have done that. Obviously, that didn't happen. You talk about separation. It is South Dakota State and then everybody else. I know that the Jacks games have been relatively close. When you look at the scoreboard, like they're not beating Kansas City by 30. They are still, I believe, head and shoulders above.
Well, I think that's fair, but from North Dakota State's standpoint, and you and I were exchanging texts, and Kolpak was in the mix, and you and I had NDSU, rolling to the second spot in the Summit League.
And then the second half happened.
All of a sudden, I'm going, wait a second here, they're not scoring in the second half.
No.
They lost the game. That was a disappointing loss. You just can't lose those types of games. But North Dakota State, South Dakota State is the best team in the league again. But if you're NDSU, get that second spot, get the bye, get to the championship game, and again, just take your chances like they did last year.
You saw it, right? We saw it when we were there in Sioux Falls. I mean, all you need is one chance. And South Dakota State did not play well. The Bison didn't either, but you had your opportunity.
But you had your chance, and that's all you can hope for again this year. I think it's going to be a tougher task this year because I think South Dakota State is reloaded. They're a better team than they were a year ago. I'm not sure NDSU without Elle Evans and Heaven Hamline are quite at the level they were a year ago. I don't know that the Bison women have that. Like at the end of games, Elle Evans was going to get Heaven Hamline was going to have the ball in her hands, and Elle Evans or Heaven were going to take the shot, and they weren't afraid to take the shot.
Correct. Yep.
North Dakota State, I don't know if they've identified that player yet on the women's side for
Again,
this season.
Yeah, and it's top heavy there on the women's side as it is on the men's. I mean, there's 4 teams, and then it's I think everybody else on the Summit League on that side.
I would
and really,
agree.
it might be 2 teams, honestly. Before we go, we're in the heart of now 2026 recruiting season, and there's an interesting recruit out there. The Bison are potentially interested in quarterback out of Omaha. You've heard that before. Bison been down that road with Easton Stick and Cole Payton. Mikey Gao is the young man's name, who's went viral, Mike, because he's ambidextrous. He can throw both about 45 yards with both arms.
Yes, and I explained on Twitter that he's ambidextrous. That is, he can throw with both arms. And our friend Tim Purdon said, hey, Mike, we know what ambidextrous means. I don't know if everybody out there does. That's why I included it. I'm just being fair to everybody here. But this young man apparently is interested in coming to North Dakota State. He's had some big-time schools checking him out over the years. He started as a high school quarterback at age 14, and that's kind of when he first got his publicity nationally, so to speak, on social media.
That video.
But the video of him throwing both ways and rolling and stuff, 2 million TikTok views, I guess in the United States.
Wow.
I guess worldwide, it's a possibility. It's like in the billions from what I've been told.
Holy cow.
And so, he's met all these different guys. I'm going to write up a story on it here for Inform soon. But interesting prospect for NDSU.
Be interesting to watch. Again, quarterback out of Omaha. Bison have had some success with those guys.
They've been good quarterback.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see the quarterback from Omaha next year, whether he's the man.
Thanks for coming by, bud. We appreciate it. Mike McFeely joining us this week. Don't forget UND NDSU coverage at 1 and 4 on Saturday. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Bison Media Zone.